I'm so happy to have you, Grandma.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to get emotional right off the bat. It means the world to me to have you here and to have you in general. So I think it's important for people to understand your story, to know where you come from and when you were born and where you were born and what kind of life you were born into.
Well, I was born during the Depression, or at the start of the Depression, 1929, in Sweetwater, Texas.
I've been down there before.
Have you?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
There's not much there. I couldn't imagine what was there then. I think they've spent more money on the high school football field than the rest of the town.
They might have.
They take their football pretty seriously. What was life like in Sweetwater back then?
Well, it was just a small town. School wasn't just about 3 blocks from where we lived. And my dad didn't have a car, so we walked most everywhere. But we lived right in town, so it was only about 3 blocks into the middle of town, 3 blocks to school. So it was a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not that bad of a walk. And you didn't have to deal with snow.
Oh, no. No snow.
How many siblings did you have?
Just one brother.
Yeah.
He was 18 months older than me.
Okay. Yeah. What did the Depression affect Sweetwater very much?
Well, we moved a lot because my dad didn't have an education, so he was always looking for work. And he didn't have an education. He went to school, but he did not have jobs were hard to find.
Yeah.
So he was always looking for work somewhere. So we moved quite a number of times.
Yeah. So his work was mainly labor type jobs, or
he did. He worked at an ice plant, and where they made big block ice delivered to the houses. And he worked at a machine shop. He worked in the oil fields. A lot of oil fields because they were just discovering oil.
Yeah.
And so they would go from, there would be one boom town, the oil would come in, and then they'd go to another town.
Yeah.
So we moved quite a bit.
They didn't have all the technology like they do now. They frack and push the oil around and do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like that was pretty common back then. It seemed like a lot of the employment, people were always chasing the work because the work would, the resources, like whether it was agriculture, oil, or even gold, of course, they just pick up camp and move. Yeah,
they did. He never worked as a farm laborer. He didn't do that kind of work, but mostly it would be machine shop or oil fields.
Yeah. How long did you live in Texas?
Till I was 12.
Okay.
1941.
Right in the middle of World War.
Well, actually, we moved in 1942.
Okay.
Moved to Kirkland, Washington.
Okay. And that was during World War II and the U.S. was involved?
Oh, yeah. That was right. As soon as school was out, my dad came out first. And he went to work in the shipyards. And then my mother and my brother and I came out on the train and went to Kirkland. And then I finished high school there.
Yeah. How was the train ride? Do you remember?
Great. Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it like looking at the scenery from Sweetwater where there is no scenery and then coming up through the Rockies and then through the Cascades? Do you remember that?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. The only thing I remember is when we got to Washington, my brother and I went. They had a fellow that would walk through the train selling candy bars and cigarettes and things like that. And we wanted a candy bar, but they wanted tax. And I didn't know what a tax was.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tax token. Like the candy bars were probably 10 cents a piece. And he wanted 1 token. You got 3 tokens, I believe, for a penny. And he wanted a tax token.
Of course.
We went back, and in our very southern drawl, we said, "What's a tax token?"
Yeah.
Had no idea what a tax token was.
Yeah, Washington definitely likes to tax things.
Yes.
I didn't know it started that long ago. So when you moved to Washington, was it, so this is in the middle of World War II, so everything
Just the
was
start of World War II.
just the start.
Yeah.
Were the rations, were they rationing everything?
Yes. Yeah, they rationed everything. Food, gas for your car, tires for your car. Meats were rationed. Sugar was rationed. I think you could buy vegetables and that type of thing, but
Yeah. Would people get together and barter rations and things like that at like farmers markets? Do you know?
well, I don't. I can't remember my mother ever doing that, but of course, maybe you could save up your ration
Yeah.
stamps, and I still have my book of ration stamps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah,
It's hard for us to think about
you
that.
had one book for your car,
Yeah.
and then for food.
Oh, okay. So they kept them itemized to like
Yeah.
what type of
Yeah,
thing you were getting?
You had these kind of stamps for your tires or your cars.
Okay.
And then during the war and being on the coast, they had a blackout at night, and you had to have either blackout curtains or no lights on, so that there was no light shining outside.
And that was so if the planes were going to come in and bomb,
And
they
so
couldn't
if the
see.
planes came over, they always warn you that a plane could spot even a match that was lit.
Yeah.
And so we had blackout curtains, and on the cars, they had on the lights, there was a little
Oh, yeah.
visor thing.
Yeah,
that
over the
came
top of
out
them.
Over the lights, that way they shine down.
Oh, I didn't know that's what that was for. You see them when you go to these antique car
Yeah.
shows. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So isn't that neat? Like to
Yeah.
think about that there's the little like knickknacks that you take for granted or you
Yeah,
don't understand.
You just take it for granted.
Yeah. So what, you graduated from high school there. What did you do after high school?
Well, when I was in high school, I worked 2 jobs. I started when I was, I believe, a sophomore. I saw a sign in the window. My mother and dad had gone into town. I rode into town with them. And I saw a sign in the drugstore that said, dishwasher wanted. So I go ask my mother, if I can get a job, will you let me work? And she said, of course, doing what and everything. So I got the job, and I started as a dishwasher one day, and the next day I was working the fountains, and they had ice cream fountains at the drugstore. And so next day I was making milkshakes and sandwiches and working the counter.
Yeah.
And I did that. And then the people that owned the theater came in and asked me if I would go to work for them at the theater. And so I did. I worked at the drugstore after school, theater at night, and still going to school.
Yeah.
And then where we lived was called a housing project, and they had government housing. And that was for your workers, an influx of people that came in for the working in the shipyards.
Yeah.
And so we lived in the housing project, and they had a great big gymnasium. And so the people, excuse me, the owners of the theater wanted to start showing movies up at the housing project. And so my brother managed the theater, and then he would get everything ready. I would sell the tickets. Then when the doors opened, I would usher people in. He would run the projector, and then we would close up
Oh, cool.
and come home. So he learned how to run a projector, and
Yeah.
I learned how to count money.
Oh, yeah. I bet you were good at that. I think that's so, when I hear about soda fountains or ice cream fountains, you picture like the old movies, and I think you're okay. I picture my grandpa, Steve, he always talks about that. And those are like his favorite memories are the soda fountains, of course. And he likes his sweets to this day. But I bet that was such a neat environment to be a part of back then.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
It was something I hadn't been used to. So I got my first tip. Lady left the change for me. I did not know what it was because I never knew what a tip was.
Oh, isn't that neat?
Yeah. Because, see, I was only like 14.
Yeah. Were you pretty bubbly, your personality? Was it outgoing as you are now?
Oh, no, I was more shy.
You were?
Yeah.
How is-
Because I was into something I wasn't used to.
Yeah. But it probably built your confidence up to
I think
what
so.
you have. Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's important. Like
Yeah.
with you raising girls, you want them to go out and try these things and expose themselves to some of these situations where you might be a little shy at first, but you can see their confidence kind of blossom through those situations.
Well, when you're in charge of something like the theater, definitely it boosts your confidence.
Yeah. And the theater was the big time back then.
It was.
I hear consistently through interviewing this generation, almost every one of them brings up the theater. And even the lady that we interviewed over in England, I mean, the Cowboys and Indians movies over there, that was the big time.
Well, you didn't have TV.
Yeah.
So the entertainment you had
Was
going to the theater.
So you either had like movies for visual entertainment, music, or theater, right? Like plays and stuff like that. Yeah.
That'd be it. School events.
Yeah. Were you involved in any school activities?
Oh, not really.
You were working too
I
much.
was working too much.
Yeah, that doesn't
Had
surprise
to get
me.
some studies in sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the community and the government camps, did they probably really appreciated you and your brother putting that together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So nobody probably gave you any grief.
No.
Or you might shut the
No,
theater down for
that's
them.
right.
Oh, that's
No,
fun.
it was a real interesting experience.
Yeah, I bet.
Taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Taught me a lot about people.
What kind of lessons do you think you learned during that?
Well, how to handle people, I think, because, they did not open the doors. They sold the tickets. Then they kept the doors closed. You couldn't go in until a certain time. And then I went and took the tickets, opened the doors and took the tickets. And I had one couple that wanted to sneak in early. And they just would not, I would tell them no. And they just kept on and on and on and on. And so you have to not make them mad, but you still have to be in control.
Yeah.
And I did not let them in.
I think that's it seems like a lot of people that I know, they struggle with that. Sometimes it's just easier to break the rules a little bit or something just to not deal with
No,
grumpy people.
I was raised up to respect the law and do what was right. And that was my job, not to let them in. And I was told that, so I didn't.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, didn't let them in.
I bet you wouldn't put up with much. So after how long did you guys run the theater at the camp?
2 years.
Oh wow. Would you do a movie like every week or once a month or?
Let's see, once a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bet all kinds of people came down to watch.
Oh, it was filled. It was filled every night. It was a big gym, and they'd set up chairs.
Yeah.
And it was filled every time they had a movie.
Oh, that's so neat.
Yeah.
That's so neat. I wish people still got together like that or did things like that more publicly or socially. I think that's one thing that's so neat about your generation is it seems like your generation was more apt to socialize. They had like a little bit more confidence to go out and socialize and intermingle, and they weren't so to themselves like a lot of us.
They did because they didn't have the entertainment at home.
Yeah.
So you get together with your neighbor.
Yeah. You kind of grasp like a sense of community.
Yeah.
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 What did you do after high school?
Moved to Yakima with my folks.
Okay.
And then I went to work in a theater in Yakima. Worked there. And then met my first husband at a dance.
Oh,
I
neat.
went with a girlfriend and her folks, and met my first husband. And
Oh, that's
got
neat.
married, moved to Granger.
What at these dances was it would like because I've multiple people have brought up these dances that I've talked to, and so was it a very like it's a lot of the dating scene. What I heard was out in these dances. And was it really fun to mingle and meet all these people? Like, were the men aggressive, or was it more of a very respectful?
Oh, very respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Grange dance.
Okay.
We never had Granges, that type of thing in Texas. But out here, they had all of the Grange because of the farming, I think, type of farming. And so that most of the Granges held to dance Saturday night, had a band.
Yeah.
And they were, they did not drink inside the building.
Yeah.
So if they wanted something to drink, they went out to the car to
yeah.
intermission. And so,
Yeah, the liquor store was in the trunk of the car, I've heard.
That's right.
Yeah. And so what was how did your first husband approach you?
Just asked for a dance.
Yeah.
And then he asked if he could come back and see me again, or if I'd be at the next dance. And I was. And
Oh, that's so neat. You must have been a good dancer.
I was.
I believe that. Yeah.
I've always loved dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so neat. And then, so you married him, and then you guys lived in Yakima there?
No, we lived on the farm.
Oh, was this the farm in Granger?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
He bought, when he was in the service during the war, Second War, he sent his money home, saved it up, and then his folks put money down on the farm for him. And that's how he acquired it.
Yeah. That's so neat.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad he asked you to dance.
Well,
Because
I
I know,
am too.
I know, I mean, Stephen and I, of course, he's had a lot of good memories. For people that don't know, my cousin Stephen's sitting here behind the camera. But we have many fond memories out there. And it's funny how life plays out.
Well, it is. And after all of the grandkids came along, I would have most of them during the summer.
Yeah.
I had I had Stephen and Michael every summer. They'd come up to see their dad, and then their dad was working. So they came and stayed with me. And then I thought, well, if I got two of them, I might as well have some of the others. So then there would be John, and there would be Emily, and there would be Jennifer never stayed very much.
Yeah.
She was a home girl.
Yeah.
I kept her one time, and she cried most of the time. She wanted to go home.
Yeah.
So that didn't work real good. But the kids.
There's something about being on a farm. When you, and you had, how long did you guys, or how long were you married before you had your first child?
The first one, well, it was about a year.
Okay.
About a year.
So you got to adjust to the farm life and get settled in. And,
yeah. Well, I was used to farm life because my grandparents farmed.
Oh, yeah.
And during the Depression, while my dad would be looking for work, we would go live with my grandparents. Yeah. So I was used to the farming, and it was completely different type of farming. They lived in a real small community. Really no modern conveniences.
Right.
My grandmother raised chickens. She sold eggs, and she raised turkeys. And my grandmother was a real pioneer lady. And I think I take after her a lot because I'm really not afraid to try to do something.
No, that's for sure.
And my grandmother, way back in the 30s, raised turkeys. And she was very enterprising. She would put ads in a magazine to sell her turkeys. They would make crates, and she would ship live turkeys at Thanksgiving time and at Christmas time.
Oh, wow.
And that for a lady to do that back then,
Yeah.
to take the initiative to do that, was kind of unheard of it. And my granddad was not into that. He didn't care for that type. He liked his horses and the fields and that. So Grandma did that, and that, to me, always impressed me.
Yeah.
That she could do that.
That's one thing that's kind of neat about grandparents is they do a lot of impressive things.
She really did. She was not afraid of anything. I will tell you the story of, we were staying at my grandparents', and so during the night, the young turkeys in a pen started making a lot of noise, squawking and making a lot of noise. And my grandmother got up, and she knew something was after the turkeys. So she got her gun, got a lantern, and my mother had to go because my mother would say, "Grandma, you can't go out there by yourself." My grandmother would say, "I'm used to doing this." But anyway, my mother had to go along, and she drug us kids in the middle of the night. Here we are, all trailing along after Grandma. She had the gun. She had a flashlight, and she looked around the turkey pen. She looked up in a tree, and can't think now what crawled out on that. A snake.
Oh.
A snake had crawled out on a limb on the tree, was going to drop down into the turkey pen. And she just took an aim on that snake, shot it, turned around and said, "Okay, let's go back to bed."
No big deal.
No big deal. She was used to that. She also had a squirrel dog. That was a little terrier, and she wouldn't like us kids not to play with the dog. You can't teach it bad habits because that was her squirrel dog. And since food was hard to get, meat was hard to get, she would go out hunting. And she'd take that dog, he'd tree a squirrel, she'd shoot it, and
that was lunch.
together, that was dinner.
Or dinner, yeah.
Yeah, that was dinner.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah.
They're pretty resourceful. Like we take so many of those things for granted these days, how you used to have to work for every bite to eat in some way or another,
yeah.
Whether you were farming it, picking it, or killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of lost. I wish we'd get back to that. There's something like natural to like human nature to do that too. You know, like we hunt and you go out, and it's very rewarding, especially and then it makes the meals too so rewarding when you earn it. You know, when you go out there and earn it, and you sit down with your family.
We didn't know what we was eating.
Oh yeah.
My brother and I was like, "What is this? It is chicken."
Yeah, it's all chicken.
Well, this don't look like chicken. Where's the drumstick? You know.
That's
anyway,
funny.
they convinced us it was chicken.
Yeah, that works. Those little lies that don't matter.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So when you guys were out on the farm, was it an orchard yet? Or was
it was always an orchard.
Always an orchard. What were they growing back?
We had the pears.
Okay.
At one time it was an apple orchard. And then they put it into pears, grapes, and cherries.
Okay. So, and it was like that for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. We always had the same thing. We did replant the cherry orchard.
Yeah.
The trees were old. They were big. The new modern type trees was coming out. That was the rootstock would be on a dwarf.
Yeah, dwarf
tree.
stock.
Yeah. And then you would graft that.
Yep. Am I grafting, like that's when they would peel the bark open, right?
Yeah,
or they would drill it and plug it?
No, You peel it, you slice it down the side, put a limb or
Yep.
you put a cutting
Yep.
into that, and you put your kind of like a glue around that and tape it, and those limbs would start growing.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Yes, and then you'd get the tree you wanted.
I wonder how they figured that out. Like, whether somebody was just messing around one day, or if there was some science behind
I think
it.
they figured they could plant trees closer, get more fruit off of
Yeah,
it
more yield. Yeah.
than getting the big old trees. Nobody liked picking them.
Yeah.
When we was at the end of farming, before we sold, the pickers, if you called up to the unemployment place for pickers, they'd want to know how tall the trees was, if it's flat land, how big a ladder they had to have.
Oh.
They was getting very, very particular about whether they wanted to work for you.
Oh.
So you had to kind of go with the times.
I see. That's like capitalism at work. They
Yeah.
they knew if they could stop picking, then they would they would adjust the
And
orchards
if it
for
was
them.
hillside, you usually paid them more.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That's so neat. And you had a few hills out there. So how many kids did you have?
Three.
Orchards? Yeah.
Three boys.
Yeah. Were they good workers?
They all started on the farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was George, Dean, and Kenneth. They didn't any particular like it. George had allergies really, really bad.
Yeah.
So it was tough for him to be out amongst the
Oh yeah.
trees with the pollens and things. And Dean wanted to be a teacher, so he didn't farm. And Kenneth, he liked the big city.
Yeah.
So after they graduate, well, they worked on the farm during the summer, and they'd help us, and they'd pick, and they would drive tractor and
Yeah.
do whatever. They'd, what we called it, swapping boxes,
Yeah.
where you had a big sled behind the tractor. You pull that through the orchard, and with your boxes on there, and then you threw the boxes off under each tree. However many you thought the tree, if it had a light crop, maybe you only needed 5 boxes under this tree. Maybe the next tree you'd need 7 boxes.
Yeah.
So you guessed, but that's what you do is just throw boxes off.
Yeah. Were
So
you good
they
at that,
did
Steven?
that.
Yeah, we did that. We did a lot of that in summer.
Yes.
So Grandpa had a tractor, and it had forks on the front, forks on the back. And so the cherry bends are only half the height of like a regular apple bend because the cherries pack in a lot tighter.
Yeah.
And they'll crush down. So my brother and I, we would go around with tickets because each flat, like Grandma was talking about, would be underneath the tree, and they would fill up. So we would go around with the tractor, and we would give the pickers a ticket for every flat. And they would turn the tickets in at the end of the day.
Oh, okay.
And then when we would fill up a bin, we'd go park it underneath the tree. We'd grab an empty. And then when we got, I don't know, I think it was maybe a dozen, maybe 14 bins, then we'd throw it on the truck, and Grandpa would roll on down to the cold storage, and we'd just just make circles.
Oh, isn't that neat?
Yeah, just go up
And you're
down.
still packing boxes around.
That's right. We'd just
And
go up and down the rows all day.
Yeah.
Michael and Stephen learned to drive the truck on the farm.
Oh, I bet.
They went with me to the warehouse. I'd drive the truck, and they went with me to the warehouse. So when they, I don't know, did you have your permit?
Yep.
They had their driver's permit. So we got back to the Zillow on the old road. I pulled up and stopped, and I said, well, which one of you wants to drive first? And, you mean it, Grandma?
Yeah.
You mean it? Yeah. Okay, I don't remember which one of you drove first, but it was a cab over, 57 Ford cab over.
Yeah.
And the gear shift on those are really hard to find. Third.
Yeah.
And so they'd have to sit up on the edge of the seat to finally get that in gear. But they did really good. We got back, and they made their corner, turned it, went back down to the orchard and parked it.
Oh, yeah.
So they each one learned to drive.
Oh, that's neat. There's so many things you learn on a farm. It's like it's so dynamic when you're on a farm. You learn just so many life skills.
Yeah.
It's one thing I think a lot of kids these days are missing out on. They don't, like now, like you'd hear about people like if they saw a 12-year-old driving now, a lot of people would be like calling the cops. Do all that. Back then, that was getting the job done. Yeah, you needed that 12-year-old to drive.
Yeah, that's true.
That's so fun. So I think so you were on the farm, you kind of adopted another individual, right, that came out there?
Well, the kids was always bringing someone home from school that needed a place to stay. Sometimes the kids and their folks just didn't get along real good, and some of them was staying in their car, and so they would say, "Can we bring so-and-so home?" And so there was a lot of kids that came and stayed with us, and a lot of them were ones we knew through church. And this one boy, his name was Ed. I don't think he'd mind me saying so, because he was very special to all of us. It was Ed Carlisle. And one day, he and his sisters, he was 18, his folks made all the kids go to work in the fields when they got 8th grade. They could not finish high school. And he wanted an education really bad, so they had going to work that morning. His folks took him out, put him in the field, and he called me, and he wanted to know if I'd come pick him up. And I really didn't know what to do. I didn't want to cause a lot of problems, but he sounded pretty desperate, so I went and got him. And I did call the authorities and say, what do I do in this case? And so they said, well, the girls weren't 18. They had to go back home. But he was 18. He could stay. So he started back to school, finished high school, went in the service, went to college.
And he lived with you for how many years going to school?
About 3.
3 years, wow.
Yeah.
And your door was always open, it seems like.
It was always open.
Yeah.
We had somebody come in about 2 o'clock one night. This doorbell rang and went to the door, and here was a friend that we knew from school. My kids knew him. And I said, well, Raul, what are you doing here? And he goes, well, my folks kicked me out. And he needs a place to stay.
Yeah.
And so here he came. And so he stayed for a while.
Yeah.
And then he got back with his folks, so he was okay.
Good.
Yeah. But he went on back to school. He probably stayed with us a couple of months.
Yeah. And Ed ended up getting a college degree. What did Ed end up doing?
He worked as UPS. He started as a driver, ended up in management. And then he also had several bank management jobs.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that feel so rewarding? Giving that opportunity to somebody and looking back.
It does, knowing what it meant to him.
Yeah.
And he's very appreciative.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very appreciative.
Yeah, I know seeing him at your 95th birthday, you could tell how appreciative he was.
Yeah.
That's one thing I look back on even, like when I was a kid, like coming out there, it was like, there was something about that place. It was like my safe, like I call it my safe place, or it was just where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Because my situation, I was a little bit nervous, when I would go there, but not there.
Sure.
There's something about you, Grandma, that just makes everything feel so warming around you.
That's good. I really, I enjoyed having all the grandkids around.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had a little trailer that went behind the three-wheeler.
Yeah, the little death traps.
Yeah, and I'd put a blanket down in the bottom of that trailer, and I'd pile the kids in, and up and down the orchard rows. You remember that, Stephen?
I do.
Yeah. Wasn't that so pretty driving through those? Because I remember it'd be like a hot summer day, but you'd get down there in the shade of those trees and you could go through there and it felt so cool. And it was beautiful.
About 10 degrees difference.
Yeah.
Right down in the draw, down in the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so neat. So your husband must have been really, he was a caregiver type or very open to having kids around.
See, when I was married to George Jaquish, and he was killed in a farm accident. And we'd been married 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And then I met a man named Johnny Parker. And we went together a couple of years, and then we got married. And we just had a blended family.
Yeah. How'd you meet Grandpa John?
Well, I knew him and his wife. And I'd known him. And then the oldest boy of John's was in the same grade as my youngest son.
Okay.
So I knew him through school, through bowling, and Lions Club.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was Grandpa John pretty social then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was always social, very friendly, very outgoing.
So he was easy to be attracted to or to, I guess, conversate with and get. He kind of had like what we call like charismatic type individual.
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when did you and Grandpa get married?
In 97. No, 67.
67?
Yeah. My husband died in 65. We was married in 67.
Oh, I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah. And then John and I was married for 31 years.
Yeah. What do you think it is about you that, how come, like when you look back, is there anything you can look back on and figure out why your heart was so open to people? You know, like a lot of people aren't as accepting to bring on all these kids and especially blend families. And you always did it with such, I would call it like grace and love, you know, like.
I don't know. I guess just my upbringing and my dad had a big family and it was just a big happy family. And I don't think I ever knew any different. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's just who you are.
That's just who I am. Yeah.
It's just one of those gifts you have. It's what's so neat about that, you know, I would call it a gift or like your personality is think of how many people you've impacted in such a positive way. I mean, you know, including everybody in this room, but just so many people like at your birthday party. I think that was so neat to see. You know, I love it.
It's very heartwarming.
Yeah.
And I tell you, you don't know just the little things you say or the little things you do, what it means to people. But up at the fair one time, there was a couple came by and they had another couple with them. And this was a boy that was in my scout troop. I was den mother.
Yeah.
And he was in my scout troop. And I never thought anything about it because he was grown and married. But when he came by, he introduced their friends to me. And he said, "This is my scout leader."
Oh.
That impressed him.
Yeah.
You know, just the little things, taking them on hikes. I'd say to the parents, "I'm going to take the boys on a hike. Anybody want to go?" "No, but we'll send something along."
Yeah.
You know, never a parent ever went with me.
Just you and a bunch of little troops.
Take little trips and we'd go to the river or whatever, and we'd teach them songs and we'd teach them crafts and did a lot like that.
Yeah, it's amazing how much, what that means to a child. And sometimes they don't know it till they're older.
Well, that's exactly right, because I had never even thought anything about it. I thought, well, it's just an outlet for kids, something to do after school. But it impressed him enough that's made an impression to say, "This is my scout leader."
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
So can we go back to when you met Grandpa and you guys got married? What was Grandpa doing at that time? Was he a mechanic or?
He had an auto repair shop.
Right. In Granger or was Zilla?
In Granger.
Granger?
Yeah.
That's
always the same one.
And
he worked for a fellow by the name of Ted Collins, he worked for him for a number of years. And then this was a livery stable and a blacksmith shop. And then Mr. Hart had it and turned it into a auto repair place. And John had a chance to buy that.
Oh, okay.
So he bought the shop
And then you turned him into a farmer?
well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good for you.
He liked farming.
Yeah.
His parents farmed when they lived in Arkansas, and he always liked the farm. And so, in fact, he wanted to close the shop and just farm.
Yeah.
But some years are not really good on the farm.
Yeah.
You have freezes and disasters of hail and things that can wreck a crop. So we had to have the shop for those years. We didn't have a crop, but he really liked the shop and the farming.
Yeah.
And he finally closed the shop and went full-time farming.
Yeah. And so when you guys got married, you had then 7 kids combined?
7 combined.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I bet that was
Michael
so fun.
and Stephen Doug and Don and Nancy Nina.
Yeah.
I'm getting the grandkids mixed up.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're most important, right?
I know.
No. Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I think that's so neat.
Yeah,
to
we
think about.
did. And, the kids were all so close because they knew each other in school.
Yeah.
And I don't think to this day they don't know that they aren't cousins.
Yeah.
They always said we're cousins.
Oh.
This is my cousin.
Yeah.
And everybody just got along so good. And it was just a pleasure,
Yeah. So
really.
when you met Grandpa, what was he playing? He was playing music?
He was playing music. He'd been playing music since he was about 12 years old.
Yeah.
And he started playing in clubs when he was 16.
Oh, wow.
And, of course, then they, with the drinking, he could be on the bandstand, but he could not be in the bars. He had to go outside during the break.
Oh,
So he'd have to go out there, and then he could go back and play.
yeah.
So he's been playing guitar for a long time. And he, the way he learned to play was he had rheumatic fever.
Yeah.
He had it twice. And he was in bed because it affected his heart. And his older brother, Travis, had a guitar. Travis didn't like to share,
Yeah.
but it hung on the wall. So John would take down that guitar, lay there in bed, and he'd play guitar. His mom and dad could play.
Yeah.
And so his mom would show him different chords. And he would practice, lay there and play that guitar. And then before his brother got home from work, he'd hang it back
Hang it
on
right
the
back
wall.
up on the wall. Hear footsteps coming and
Yeah,
hang it up.
right.
Oh, isn't that fun?
Yeah.
And so when did you start playing music? Or how did that come about?
Well, I would go with him when he played at dances or whatever. And so I decided, well, I might as well learn to play
Yeah.
as long as I'm going to go.
Yeah, you weren't afraid to do anything.
It's going to double the income.
Yeah.
So he bought me a guitar, and I learned.
Just learned on the fly.
I actually learned almost on the job.
Yeah.
I could play enough that there was a fellow called Duke Lacombe that he lived in Yakima, and he moved to Granger, and he bought the Circle Inn restaurant. And it had a bar, restaurant and bar, dance floor, and he wanted music because he was a musician. And so he talked to John, and he said, well, what about me? And I said, well, I really had never played out. He said, well, I tell you what, I'll give you half wages. And he'll give John the full wage. And then in a month, if it worked out, he'd give me full wages.
Yeah.
And it did. So I
I
actually
bet.
learned right on the job. We started out playing one night a week. Then we went to 2 nights a week, Friday and Saturday. Then we played 3 nights a week, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And we played there 7 years.
Oh, wow. Isn't that something?
That's a long time to be in one space.
Yeah, I love that story. I tell people that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's so incredible that
Yeah.
you had the courage and the confidence in yourself. And, well, obviously you and Grandpa had the confidence in each other to support each other and go play and be a part of that. And,
Yeah.
And-
I really liked it. People on my dad's side, his relatives, his sisters and brothers were musical.
Yeah. Did it,
So it was
so
kind of natural to me. You know, it didn't seem that difficult.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like hearing that.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy to do.
No, it's not easy to do, but I had a good teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet. So, and then you and Grandpa ended up playing and meeting some pretty famous people. What are some of your favorite?
We did.
Yeah. Would you mind listing off some of the people that you got to play music with or meet or?
Okay. Bobby Bear played down in Vancouver, Washington. And they contacted John for a lead player. And then he was supposed to pick up the band. So he and I, and we had a drummer and another instrument.
Yeah.
And we played. We played with Bobby Bear. Then they had
Merle Travis?
Merle Travis. He was in Stevenson, Washington. And this was something I had not planned on playing with him. But the group they had, the bass player got so nervous playing with Merle Travis. And I didn't know any different to be nervous. So I said, it was okay.
Yeah.
But he got so nervous after the first set, he said, I can't play. I just can't go back and play. And John came over to me and he says, you got to play the second set.
Yeah.
And I said, but I don't know his songs. He said, you'll do fine.
Yeah.
So I played the second set with Merle Travis.
Oh, isn't that so
And
neat?
he actually turned around and he said, I like the bass playing because you play a good straight beat.
Oh, I love that.
So that was a big thrill.
Yeah.
Absolutely a big thrill for me. And
Was Merle Travis the one that he let Grandpa pick his guitar?
he did. He did. He said to John, because John could play that Merle Travis style, thumb, finger picking.
Yeah.
And he said to John, he said, I've never done this before. But he said, I want to try something. He said, can I play your guitar? And John started to take his guitar off, and he said, no. He said, you're going to note it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to pick.
Yeah.
And he said, now, would you like to play my guitar?
That's so cool.
And John said, yeah. So he said, now you note it.
Yeah.
And he was going to pick.
Oh, that's so neat.
And so it was just a very, very crowd-pleasing.
Oh, I bet.
They really liked it because I've never seen anything like that before. Never
Yeah.
saw anybody do that.
Yeah, at that time it was probably you're in the entertainment business. You're probably trying to figure out different ways to make it more entertaining for the crowd. And that's definitely a way to do it, is to put two people on.
But they'd never practiced together,
Yeah.
never been on the bandstand together.
Yeah.
And to do that was very difficult, really. And Merle Travis gave us his private gold card. And he says, I only give this to people who are important to me.
Oh.
And he said, when you come to Oklahoma next time, you come and see me.
Oh. Did you guys ever go see him in Oklahoma?
He was ill. When we got to Oklahoma, we called.
Oh.
And he was ill, and he never recovered from it. So we didn't get to. But I still have his gold card.
Oh, that's so neat. When you And then you and Grandpa went to Nashville. And did you guys play any music in Nashville, or did you just meet and
No,
and
we
get
had, John had a friend, after they moved from Arkansas, his friend Leroy Blankenship and their family moved out from Missouri, I believe it was. And they got acquainted in Crewport where they lived. And they grew up playing music. And then Leroy went into gospel music and playing and singing. And he played with the Christian Troubadours for a while. And then he was with another singing group. And then he branched off on his own and did his own recording. And so we went to Nashville with him because he was going to make a record. And he wanted John to play lead on his record. So we did that. And I got to play on one song on the record.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
I wonder if
So
we
it
can
was
find that. We might be able to find that on the internet.
It would be really neat, but it was a real experience.
Do you know what song it was? Or what was the name of the group again?
Well, it was an album. He made an album.
Okay.
And I can't think of the name of the...
We'll see if we can maybe look it up, and because I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
I'm sure
a lot
it
of that
is.
stuff has been kept.
Yeah.
And you guys got to meet quite a few people. You went to the Grand Ole Opry and got to meet quite a few people. I think I have some pictures somewhere.
Oh, yeah, we went there, but also we went with Bob and Patty Stanton, because Bob wrote the song, Hello, I'm a Truck, and he got an award for it. Oh. So they didn't want to go to Nashville by themselves, and since we'd been there, we said, yeah, we'd go with them. So we got to go to the CMA Awards.
Oh, wow.
And the dinners. And so we got to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then when we was in the recording studio with Leroy, there was Farron Young that was waiting for Charley Pride. Charley Pride was recording, and Farron was waiting with him. They were really good friends. And so while John was recording, I stood in the hall and visited with Farron Young.
Yeah.
Very, very nice, personable person.
I think I have some pictures of you and Charley Pride.
Yes.
And some other people we'll put up here.
A lot of other people.
Like, let's see, Merle Haggard.
Merle Haggard. Our friend Cotton Roberts played with Merle Haggard in Vegas. And we went down and we went backstage with Cotton while he talked to Merle. And we had tickets for out front, sit down. And Merle said, no, you stay back here. Said, you might as well be back here where you can see.
Yeah.
And so he invited us to stay backstage while they put on a show.
Yeah. Isn't that neat?
He was really a nice person.
I bet.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of those people were.
They all were.
They were doing something they loved. And do you think, when you first started, in a little bar, restaurant, dance hall in Granger, just picking up a bass guitar, did you ever imagine that you'd be sitting in Nashville with some of the most famous singers at the time?
Never.
Still some of the most famous singers of all time.
No, I never had any idea I would ever get out of Granger.
Yeah. It just goes to show, like, if you, pick up something and you do something you're not comfortable with, or or if you just go for it, your opportunities, you can't predict them. You just got to do stuff.
No, every day is a new world.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's going to bring.
Isn't that the truth?
And you look forward to the next day to see what it'll be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
a lot of wonderful experiences that normal people, when I say normal people, everyday life.
Yeah.
Don't get to do those things.
Yeah.
And I feel very, very blessed that I had the life I did.
Yeah. I think it's good things happen to good people. And bad things do too, but they tend to work themselves out.
even with bad things happening, with George, with his accident, and with John, with cancer, we had a wonderful life. So I still feel blessed.
Yeah.
Because I've met another George.
Yeah. And we love George. We don't have a microphone for George, but we're going to get him on here.
For George, but he came into my life. We had known him. I knew his wife.
Yeah.
And she passed away. And just circumstances, to me, it just seems like I was led in the directions that I've been all my life.
Yeah.
And I don't question them.
Yeah.
I accept them.
Yeah. You walk with faith. I think it's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we continually talk about that on this podcast, and it's something I love, and like the impact we get from it is I think everybody I've interviewed so far talks about that, and you think about how time plays out, and even with like my situation with my daughter and the situation she's in, and then I look back at all these things that you go through, even in 37 years, you look back and you're like, like this happened for this reason right now. And when you live long enough, it seems like everything kind of just plays out, and it seems like it's easier to look at things and be like, everything happens for a reason.
It happens
and they tell
for
you
a
that.
Reason. Oh,
it's hard to believe when you're young.
It is.
But when you get older, you're like, oh yeah, there was a lot of truth to that.
You don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it's why.
Yeah.
But life goes on, and I think that our life is planned. I think that just be happy that you wake up another day and everything's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty good. I was wondering if I could ask you. You've said something to me that was really important. We can edit it out if you don't like it. But
okay.
You and George said when you guys met and you were talking about visiting with each other or something, and one of you brought up it was something about how like you didn't want to, I forget what it was, like forget your spouses or something like that, or if you guys don't mind, let's bring that up. I think it is when I heard that, it was one of the best things I'd ever heard, and I thought that was so important for people to understand. Is that something we can talk about, or?
Well, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, at first, when my son died, my youngest son, Kenneth, it was like I was always afraid I would forget him. And I just got in this little depressed mode. And then finally, you're not going to forget him.
Yeah.
So I have a table now with his picture and his graduation from college and different things that remind me of him. So life goes on because I knew how much he enjoyed life.
Yeah.
And it's the same way. You don't forget your past. George talks about his wife. I talk about my past. You can't forget those things.
Yeah.
Those are memories.
Yeah.
But life goes on. So now we're enjoying each other.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
When you first told me that, I've never forgotten it, because I thought, because you always wonder what that's like, because a lot of people that are young, they fear those times coming, and they, this is why it's so important to sit down with, the older generation. It's because they've been through so many of those things, and it's how we learn really how to cope with those things when the times do come, is by learning from people like you. And I think I really appreciate you sharing that, because I'll never forget it.
John and I met, it was kind of like, of course, we knew each other, but it was like, why were we brought together?
Yeah.
It's like, why? I had a farm. I couldn't farm it.
Yeah.
I had to have help. He was in a situation where he needed help.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the two came together. The same way with George and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd lost his wife, and he was by himself, and I said I wasn't going to meet anybody again at my age, and he
Yeah.
came along. And actually, we was going to one of our antique tractor social things,
Yeah.
and he called and said, "Well, if you're going, let's ride down together. We'll stop and have lunch."
Yeah.
And kind of blossomed from there.
Yeah. I love that.
So it's he and I have a good life because we go to social things and we have somebody to talk to and somebody to laugh with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's it's one thing I love about like when we're around you and George. There's always a little bit of laughing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so
Yeah.
important. That's so. I wanted to ask you this while we had you here. The antique tractor thing that you guys are a part of. What do you? Where does that come from? Do you know? Is it like a memory of a childhood, or it kind of represents your generation a little bit? But what is it to you that brings you to these antique tractors?
okay, there was some people in Pasco that wanted to start a chapter of this association up here, either Sunnyside or wherever it was. And John heard about it, and he remembers from their farming in Arkansas. And he loved that old machinery. So he was very interested in getting together with that club. And then I had grown up on a farm, and I knew about the machinery. So we just kind of went to the meeting and got started, and we was charter members. And it's been going since, I think our first meeting was in 76.
Oh, wow.
In Sunnyside. Our first show was in 76, 79 at Topnish.
Okay.
And we started and just been in it. And I don't know, you meet some really nice people. And it's, when you look back, everybody had to make a living. And they made it from the land.
Yeah.
That's how you survived in those days. Not everybody owned a store. Not everybody owned a livery stable or whatever. You had to farm in order to eat.
Yeah.
Especially if you lived way out on a farm. You had to raise a garden.
Yeah.
And I think the kids nowadays are not exposed to any of that. So when the kids from the school come down to the museum, from the agriculture museum, it's all of these things. They're just awed by it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a tractor, and that's, the old and the new.
Yeah.
It's. I think it's important that they learn. I got into genealogy, and I learned about a lot of my history back. And to think that those things actually happen. I remember the first time into this genealogy, I've read books. I've read about the Texas because I grew up in Texas, so I've read about the Alamo. And everybody knows the Alamo. That was an important thing in Texas. And then when I got when I joined the genealogy and got a little bit of history, the first thing I found out is I had a great uncle that was at the Alamo, fought at the battle with Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie.
Oh, wow.
And there he was. And it's just like, this is real. This is not a story.
Yeah. Oh,
And it
isn't that
makes
neat?
you realize when you see pioneers and all, how they must have had to suffer and fight. And I cannot imagine being in the Alamo and all these armies
Yeah.
coming at you.
Yeah.
Just overwhelming.
Yeah. We're really lucky nowadays, aren't we?
We really are. Yeah. So,
I got a question about the genealogy since we're. Do you know if the Parkers, are we related? Was it to Bonnie Parker, Bonnie and Clyde? Is that true?
well, somebody said that it was.
Because they were out of Arkansas, right?
They
The
was out of
Parkers?
Arkansas. And Aunt Ruth, which is Grandpa Parker's sister, she had a cousin that she said their son, she was sure was a person they called Pretty Boy Floyd.
Oh.
Clyde Darrell and Pretty Boy Floyd.
Okay.
And he read moonshine.
Oh, yeah.
Dressed real fancy for those days, had a new car, and he was one of those.
We should dig into that. I'm curious about that.
When they lived in Arkansas, he had a still, he and his dad. And that's how they made a lot of their money.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of money. They had a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money. But they made moonshine and sold it. And Grandma, with all these kids, she'd get into the sugar to make something. And Grandpa would tell her to stay out of that sugar.
He's messing up the moonshine manufacturer.
That was for the moonshine.
Yeah.
So, and I saw the place where they hid the still.
Yeah.
We went back to Arkansas and took Grandpa and Grandma with us. And we asked him, do you know where that still is? And he said, well, yeah, he could show us. So we went, and I could never find it again because it was out in the woods. I don't have any idea which way we went. It was out of Flippin, Arkansas. And we went out in the woods, and now there's lots of caverns, lots of caves in Arkansas. And there was a shale rock, just a flat shale rock. We walked and we walked in the woods. And Grandpa said, it's right over there. I don't know what he used as to recognize.
Yeah.
But he pulled that rock back and there was a cave.
Oh, wow.
And so we actually crawled down into that cave and you could see the smoke in there where they had
when they were cooking it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But he knew where it was. But he did not want to tell us because he made a promise to his dad.
Uh-oh.
That his dad told him, don't ever tell where that still was. Well, there was, everything was gone out of it because there was a lot of treasure hunters.
Oh, yeah.
Because they knew there was stills and things in Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
So there was a lot of treasure hunters, and it was all the makings was gone.
Oh.
But I did crawl down in there.
Oh, that's neat. I was going back. I wanted to go back a minute. I think it is so neat to think that something that Grandpa John did and got you into led you to George. You know, like the tractors.
Uh-huh.
I think that is so neat. I love that. It just makes you think, like, you just never know.
No, you don't know.
What's gonna happen.
You don't even suspect.
No.
No.
Yeah. Now I want to hear George's side of the story sometime.
I can't compete with that.
So before we finish up, Grandma, is there a few things that I could ask you? Like, I'd like to ask, like, if you look back on your, like, just back on life, is there something that sticks out to you that you've accomplished or done that's like one of your favorite memories or something? Well, we know your family's proud of you on the farm. Is there anything that you did that you just really love or to talk about? Or
I don't really think so. When you mention farm, the first I think of is all of the grandkids.
Yeah.
That is actually the first thing I actually think of. And I think of them in that trailer going through the orchard.
Yeah.
And I think about our pickers for the cherry pickers. The pear pickers, you didn't get to know the pear pickers like you did the cherries, because the cherries was about at least 10 days, 2 weeks. And you get to know your pickers really well.
Yeah.
And there again, I'll have to tell you a story.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. We had pickers that came back year after year. So you got to know them pretty well. And there was one family that they had 4 boys, 1 girl. And the oldest boy wanted to go to school. He finished high school. He wanted to go to college. And his folks told him, no, you don't need to go to college because you'll think you're better than the rest of us. Not wanting him to succeed.
Yeah.
And so I talked to him a lot about going on to college. And I've always wondered if that boy got to go to college.
Yeah.
They was such a nice family. But I will tell you what happened. Which you said open door. My house was an open door for whoever was in need.
Yeah.
So one night we was in cherry harvest, and the wind came up, had a terrible storm. And I said, those tents are going to blow down over there. I don't know what those people are going to do. They was camped in the orchard. So we went over there. It was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. So we went over. The kids was all crying. The parents was all scared, and they didn't know what to do. So we gathered them all up, brought them to the house, made them.
Oh.
So anyway, they was all huddled together. So we went over. We took them to the house. We made everybody a bed in that big rec room.
Yeah.
That's where the kids always stayed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we made them all a bed
Yeah.
on the rec room. They spent the night with us.
Oh, that's something.
Got them up. They got their breakfast the next morning and back
Yeah.
to the orchard.
I bet that was something.
We had a
sight to
lot
see.
of good families, I guess I emphasize with them
Yeah.
because it was so hard when I grew up.
Yeah.
With my dad gone most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really hard. But there's one family, they had, I think they had 4 kids. And one of the tractors broke down. And John was working on it. And this fella, he says, come on, boys. He said, we got to go help that man because this is his crop. This is his living. He's got to have that tractor tomorrow. So after they had picked all day long, they came up to the shop and helped him work on the tractor, get it going.
Yeah.
So I think what goes around comes around.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah.
It seems like that's one thing too. Like nowadays, with all the information and bad news spreading around, and you always see somebody's, robbing from somebody or attacking somebody. It seems like now the sense of community is kind of getting lost, where people are less likely, to pull over and help somebody on the side of the road or
That's true.
do any of that stuff. And it's too
That's
bad
true.
because really the majority of everybody's,
Are good people.
Are good people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's one other story I was wondering if we could bring up that I think Dean told at your birthday party about the baby.
Oh, yes. These people were, excuse me, the lady. Her husband was not very supportive. And so she got a job picking pears. She had 3 kids, and one was a baby that was probably 6, 7 months old. Early morning in Pears, it's really cold. And she just had that baby on a blanket down under a tree. And the poor little thing was just really cold. And she came to work, had to take the kids with her. So I asked her if I could bring the baby to the house and watch it. And she said yes. So I brought it to the house. And she was a good mother, but she just didn't have time to do everything. So I gave it a bath, went upstairs, found a lot of the kids' clothes, their baby clothes, got it some clean clothes. She had a man's pair of shorts wrapped around it for a diaper. So I got it some clothes and gave it a bath, warmed it up, gave it some fresh milk, put it down in my bed, put the blankets around it, and that baby slept for about 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, isn't that something?
It just slept and slept. It felt so comfortable.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So that was the story he told.
That's such a heartwarming story.
Yeah.
I love that he brought that up because that's like that story in itself, speaks volumes to your character. And it's what I always think, like some of my memories of when I was young going out there is I remember one time, it must have been Christmas time, and you and Grandpa were working on like a toy drive or something, and we went and donated a bunch of toys. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. We ran the food bank.
Yeah.
We ran the food bank for about, I think it was 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And each Christmas we'd have a toy drive, and we would take names for people who needed assistance.
Yeah.
And we would deliver toys to them. And so they have an association in Yakima where I can't remember what the name of it is, but these ladies do knitting. They may make hats and mittens or gloves or whatever for kids and donate them all. So that's what we did. We would fill baskets and deliver them at Christmas time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that. I can still picture getting into the car and everything going to that.
Yeah.
That was 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder if it, like seeing that stuff from you when I was little. I always wonder if that. I mean, I'm sure it did because I haven't forgotten it, but I always think about it, so it must have. It's just so neat how those little things just stick with you, and that was such a. It always tends to be like the heartwarming, giving, selfless acts. I think that seem to stick with people most, or from what I gather from people, they're so rewarding.
I didn't even realize that Dean. I thought he was in college then. I didn't even realize that he remembered that story.
Yeah, he was watching.
Yeah,
I love it. He's so proud of you.
So it made an impression on him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It made an impression on a lot of people in the room that day when he was telling the story. What's the time at on that thing? Is it still going up?
It's 1:20.
1:20. Okay, we got 20 minutes left. We can finish up. I was wondering. Well, first, is there anything that you'd want to say to us or like wisdom? I'd like some words of wisdom from you.
Some words of wisdom. Well, I don't know that I have any wisdom. It's just, I guess it's that old saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah.
And I do not carry a grudge. If people have done me wrong, that's okay. I figure that it is their problem, not mine, and I will still speak to them, and I still say hi to you, and I figure that life's too short.
Yeah. I think that really says a lot about, I've talked about this a lot recently, even with like my daughter. It's like, if you're the person that carries confidence and you know who you are, you're like, if you're, if you're strong enough to know like who you are, then you don't let those type of things affect you, because you're more likely, instead of letting it break down your, I would say, your foundation of who you are, you're more able to look outward and be like, well, maybe that person had a bad day. We don't know everybody's story. And so why take it personal when it probably was not personal?
Yes.
And you got to give people grace, because if you let somebody beat up your day like that, then that's on you. The more opportunities it seems like that you give people to ruin your day or to let them, chip away at you and to carry a grudge. To carry a grudge on somebody, that's giving somebody a lot of power over you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You see, you've transferred your power to them because you feel like the poor little person, and I'm not the poor little person. If whatever they did, they have to do in order to feel important, well, then that's their problem.
Yeah.
I'm still the person I am.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I just got to tell you, Grandma, like, I just am so thankful for you. I just,
Thank you.
I think a lot of people, for people to know that, like, I didn't, I saw you 2 times for a very short period over 25 years. And, for who you are, but part of the reason of who you are is why I do what I do and why I'm doing this. And I owe some of that to you. And obviously in hearing your story, I realized more how every choice that you made and other people made with your life gave, me and Steven the life that we've had. And I just think that I owe a lot to you.
Yeah.
And
Well, I want to say thanks to your mother.
Yeah.
Your
I'll tell her
mother
you said that.
She's a sweet, sweet lady. I love your mom. She was, anytime we'd call her and say, can we bring David to the farm? She'd go, yes.
Yeah. Get him out of my hair.
And so
Yeah.
she'd meet us and we'd exchange and bring him to the farm. And so I was always appreciative of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty special.
Yeah. She's something. That's for sure. Yeah. I'm pretty.
Yeah. And I want to say Franca's pretty special too.
Yeah.
When you boys was little, I've seen her sit and hold one and rock the other one with in a little bouncer with her foot while she multitasked.
Yeah. For people that watching this, so that's my cousin behind the camera. That's his mother.
Yes.
Franca, yeah.
And his twin was
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah.
So,
I wish
yes,
Michael was
yeah,
here.
She was pretty special too.
Yeah.
So, well, I got to say, if you go into a blended family and you accept everybody, they're going to accept you.
Yeah.
And if you go in with a chip on your shoulder and I don't want anything to do with those kids, But we had a happy time. I had a happy time.
Yeah.
Till they found my stash for my candy bars.
Yeah.
One day, I had a special place. I'd buy them by the big box, these candy bars. So I had them all put up in a cupboard. The kids came in. Stephen came in, and he saw me up on the cupboard getting these out.
Uh-oh.
He goes, "Oh, Grandma, we found your stash."
I think that's funny. Everybody back, I don't even know if they hide stashes anymore at candy bars.
No,
I don't.
no.
I should.
No, I keep it all out so when they come in, they can find it.
Yeah.
But that was funny. Oh, Grandma, we found your stash.
Did they get into it or did you just leave them out in the open
I
after
think
that?
I shared with them.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think, we're probably running out of memory. But yeah, well, thank you, Grandma, for letting me sit down here and visit with you and for making the drive. And
Well, thank you.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. We good? You got any questions for Stephen before?
I don't. I just want to your quiet grace, Grandma, and the lives that you've touched along the way is you can't quantify that. It's exponential. The way that you've touched all of our lives, grandkids, has worked in the way that we shape our kids, that will shape their kids. It's like a pebble in a pond. It just keeps moving outward, and I can't imagine the amount of lives that you've touched with the farm and the music and everything else that you've done through the years with, even the emceeing at the things that you do for the neighborhood that you live in. It just continues to this day, and it's very special. Very special.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're very lucky. Yeah.
Thank you.